Oh, hello and welcome to a North Wales side-by-side video. What I want to talk about tonight is actually quite an important subject, and it's something our government have not thought about. They're so set in their mindset about their net zero plans and getting the number of EVs to increase exponentially up until 2035, where you can't buy a new petrol, diesel or even a hybrid car. So this year manufacturers have to sell 22% of what they sell as pure EV. Next year it's 28%, and it goes up in percentages up until we get to 2035. So the problem the manufacturers have got is really simple, and the government can't see it. And the manufacturers are having to do things that they haven't done for years. They're pre-registering EVs to get the sales figures artificially higher than they really are, because people aren't buying the EVs. The only people that are buying them are big fleets, because of all the incentives the governments have been putting on EVs. There's not many private buyers buying EVs. So let's give you an example of what they're up to, and I'll explain why it's messing the car industry up. We'll take a Vauxhall Corsa, because I've got examples of this. Vauxhall Corsa electric varies between about 33 to 35,000 pound. So let's go off the 35,000 pound car, because it makes the sums easier. Now, Vauxhall dealers are buying brand new Corsa E's to put in their showrooms to sell to the public. So you've got a Corsa E that's 35 grand, and they know, because of the pressure that's being put on them, they've got to do something with that car. But there's nobody coming into the showroom to buy it. So they're pre-registering that car, using it as a demo, and in some instances they're not even doing that. They're just pre-registering them and putting them outside as second-hand cars, because they've already got a number plate on them. They're already registered. They're technically now a second-hand car, even though they're brand new. And they're heavily discounting the car. So you're going to see that brand new pre-registered car on a dealer forecourt for 15 grand cheaper than the retail price on a new Corsa. You're going to see them on the forecourt for less than £20,000. I've seen two on the local Vauxhall dealer forecourt, brand new Corsa E's that have been pre-registered, and they're both up for 19,995. And these are cars with very few miles on them. So they're basically a brand new car that maybe the lads have driven home in it. The salesmen have used it for a little bit as their sort of company car. Then it's gone on sale. So it is it's as good as a new car. So who in their right mind, if they're in the market for an EV, is going to buy a brand new EV when they can get a low mileage EV for 20 grand? You're not going to buy the new car, are you? You're going to buy the second-hand one. But this year they're doing that to get sales targets, but they're not going to sell all of the pre-registered cars because there's not enough people wanting to buy them. But next year they've got to sell more EVs. 28% of what they need to sell next year has to be pure EV. So they've got one more choice to manipulate the figures, and that is to restrict the sales on new petrol, diesel and hybrid cars, so they sell less ICE cars, internal combustion engine, in relationship to pure EVs, to artificially make it look like they've sold more EVs, but technically they've sold less cars. So doing that, you've then got even more pre-registered EVs on the market, and you're still going to have EVs that were pre-registered from the year before, which are still new. But now to sell, say, the 2025 car that they've pre-registered, the 2024 ones that they're putting out for 19,995 that they haven't sold, they'll have to discount even more. So which car are you going to buy now? You're going to buy the 24 because they've just knocked another £5,000 off it, but it's still technically a new car, but it's now a year old. And they're going to carry on having to do this. But each year there's going to be less and less petrol cars available and more pre-registered EVs. So the petrol car market's going to dry up because less and less people will get the opportunity, because the cars aren't available for the dealerships to sell, because the manufacturers won't supply them, because they've got to push EVs. So that's your first problem. Artificially manipulating the numbers to make it look like they've sold a lot of EVs, which they haven't sold, because they're pre-registering them. And they always do it in percentages, not actual sales figures, and that's how they get around it. It looks good, 22% EVs, the 78% petrols have been sold, but they haven't actually sold many EVs. I've just seen an owl, first one I've seen this year. Back onto subject. So it's going to artificially restrict your buying abilities, because they're going to restrict the number of petrols. So that's the first thing to consider. So if you don't want an electric car, you're going to start looking at the second-hand market. But, and here's the big but, I think people are going to start hanging on to the cars that they've already got, which is then going to dry up the supply of good second-hand cars. Like, I'm a classic on this one. I tend to change my car when it's about 2.5 to 3 years old, but I don't want to really wait a long time for my new car when I order it. I can live with a 6-month lead time, but I don't want to walk into a dealership and then, because of the way they're having to manipulate sales figures, I don't want to wait 9 months, 12 months for a new car. I don't want to do it. So I'm in the place now where my car will be 2 years old in January, which is normally where I start thinking about my next car. And then I normally think, right, what do I want? And I go and order my new car, knowing I've got 6 months to wait for it. So that car then becomes a 2.5-year-old car that then becomes available for somebody to buy. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to keep the car I've got, which means somebody doesn't get a damn good car on the second-hand market that's been well serviced and well looked after. So the second-hand car market's going to start drying up of good 2 to 3 year old cars. But the problems go even deeper than just manufacturers, dealerships. It then filters down to the suppliers of the parts that are used to make the cars. So they're going to need less parts to manufacture cars because they're not making as many cars. But it goes even further than that, and this is where I've got a little bit of knowledge on this subject, and this is massively important because to make parts you need suppliers and specialist manufacturers to be able to make the parts for the machines that make the components that go into making cars. And I'm going to give you an example, because I used to make components for a manufacturer that supplied an OE car manufacturer with components for making cars. Jaguar make most of their body shells out of aluminium. Aluminium is notoriously hard to weld, so Jaguar developed a system where they rivet aluminium and steel body panels together, and they used to use something called blind rivets. And when these rivets are made and used in the factory, they create a form of panel fastening that's stronger than a spot weld, but it's actually a rivet, a very specially designed rivet. It goes through the first piece of metal, and as it goes into the second piece of metal, it goes about halfway through and then opens up like a staple, and it bonds the metal together and holds it together very, very strongly. Now, I used to work for a company that made a component for a machine that made the rivets, and they're called transfer fingers. And I've got some pictures of them, and I'll put them into the video, and I'll show you what these little fingers look like. And these little fingers are used in the manufacturing of the rivets. So we're like, you've got the manufacturer who uses the rivets, you've got the manufacturer who makes the rivets, and then you've got the supplier of the tooling that is used by the manufacturer that makes the rivets. And that's where I came in. I was working for a company that made the tooling for the company that made the rivets, but then was supplied to Jaguar. Now, Jaguar have stopped making internal combustion engine cars, which means they've stopped making cars whilst they transfer over to a fully EV platform for all of their cars. Because they've stopped making cars, we've got two companies now who are one's a supply company to the manufacturer, and one's a supply company to the manufacturer of the parts for the OE manufacturer. So you've got two companies now who have got no work. The people who make the rivets and the people who supply the tooling for the people that make the rivets. Neither of them have now got any work. I left the company 2.5 years ago that made the tooling to make the rivets. Not because I saw what was going on in the car industry, because of an injury I suffered, which means I can't do the job I was doing, which is why I left. Nothing to do with what was going on in the car industry. I would have stuck it out through thick and thin. But I'm still in contact with the company I work for. And I was there the other night and the gentleman was telling me, since Jaguar stopped making cars, whilst they're changing over, his work literally dried up overnight. He's got no work. He's not making the tooling because the company that he made the tooling for aren't making the rivets. And they're not making the rivets because Jaguar aren't making the cars. So this EV mandate that our governments are hell-bent on is totally not just messing the car industry up, which it is, it's also messing the suppliers up that supply the car industry. And that's only one example I know about, because I've got personal interests in the company that made the tooling to make the rivets, and I'm a personal friend of the gentleman that owns the company, and he is at the moment running a business on a shoestring now because he hasn't got the work. He's got other jobs, but not the bread and butter job that paid the bills. He's at a point now where he says in a couple of months he's going to start hemorrhaging money. He won't be able to afford, without losing money, to turn the lights on, go to the workshop and do anything. He's not going to be able to make enough money. So he's very close to saying, do you know what, I've had enough. I'm just going to shut the business down and retire. But the problem then is when the car manufacturing either has to make a giant U-turn and go back to making internal combustion engines, they're not going to have the suppliers in place to make the components to make the cars, because they've all gone bust, shut down and gone, you know, I can't be doing with this. I've made my money over the last couple of years whilst the car industry was doing good, and because of all these mandates, governments, the European Union, Davos, World Economic Forum, whoever's at the bottom of this is going to put millions of people out of work. It's going to devastate an entire industry, and it's going to leave very, very few companies in existence who are capable of making these very, very specialised tools that are required to manufacture a car. And I mean, the work that goes in to one of these transfer fingers is unbelievable. The guy I used to work for, the guy who owns the business, between us, we developed jigs. We wrote programs for CNC machines. I wrote the programs for the CNC machines to make these transfer fingers. Between us, we developed a jig to go on the CNC machine to manufacture the transfer fingers, and we could make thousands of them a week. He's got a 70,000–80,000 pound CNC miller now standing idle, not making any money. We've got a multi-thousand-pound jig that we designed and built in-house, sitting on that CNC milling machine, not doing any work. There is thousands upon thousands of pounds worth of stock sat in his warehouse, which he's bought, that is no longer being used to make the transfer fingers. So the amount of money he's got tied up that now can't make money is a phenomenal, and it's a six-figure sum that he's got tied up in machinery, jigs and materials that's just sitting there idle. And that is wrong. This is what this zero mandate is doing to small businesses, big businesses. They've got stuff now sat idle, not producing, not making money, and it's going to put businesses out of business. That's what's going to happen eventually. There will be no car industry, there will be no component manufacturers, there will be no machine manufacturers, and the skills that are involved in doing all these jobs are going to disappear. There's going to be a skills shortage, not just in Britain, in other countries in the world. There's going to be a lot of people who are just going to go, do you know what, I'm just giving up on it, I'm just going to retire early, live off my pension, see my days out, and bollocks to everything that's going on in the world, and I'm just going to enjoy the rest of my life. And that's what's happening. That's what's going to happen. Right, thank you very much, and I hope you've stuck with me all the way through, and I hope you understand what I've said in this video about how the car industry is going and how it's affecting other businesses that are connected to the car industry. Because everybody's highlighting the car industry, they're forgetting about parts suppliers and the suppliers to the parts suppliers. They're forgetting about them people, because they're only the little players. They're not the ones that people see. They're not the ones anybody sees. They see a final product. They do not realise how many other people are indirectly connected with the car industry. I was, for many, many years, indirectly connected with the car industry, making what we made to supply to the car industry. And it's skills that are disappearing very quickly. Skills I've learned over many, many years. Designing tooling, machining tooling, manufacturing parts, manufacturing them correctly, day in, day out, to massively fine tolerances, knowing how to run a CNC machine, knowing how to write the programs to make these machines work, to make the components. These are dying arts, and once they're lost, they are lost forever. They're gone. And all these little companies will disappear. The British government, the European governments, the world governments do not realise the devastation they are creating, or they do know what's going on, but they want control of everything. Like somebody famously said, you will own nothing and you will be happy. A load of tosh, a load of rubbish. You won't be happy because you will be given what you need off the government, and that's all you will have. You'll have no aspirations. You'll have nothing to aim for in life. Nothing at all. That's the way the world's going, I'm sorry. Thank you for listening, and good night.
Here's a little song I wrote, Kaya Starma. Might wanna sing it note for note. Be happy, in every life we have some trouble, Kaya Starma. But when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry, Kaya Starma is on your side. Be happy, don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy, no heating for pensioners. Don't worry, be happy, don't worry, be happy, freeze to death. Don't worry, be happy. Ain't got no place to lay your head. Somebody came and took your bed. Don't worry, be happy. The landlord say your rent is late. He may have to litigate unless you're an illegal immigrant. But don't worry, be happy. Look at me, I'm happy. See Rodney McFerrin live. Get tickets as low as 99. You might also like Die with a Smile, Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. The day the party died, Labour died. no cash, ain't got no style, ain't got no gal to make you smile. But don't worry, be happy, cause when you worry, your face will frown, and that will bring everybody down. So don't worry, be happy, don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy, don't worry, be happy. Pensioners have no heat, don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy, pensioners have no heat. Now there is the song I wrote, I hope you learned it note for note, like good little children. Don't worry, be happy. Now listen to what I said. In your life expect some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. But don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy.